Hello my dear friends, you're in the military summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 4th of October of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to start with Crimea. During the previous night and during the previous day, the Ukrainians made a lot of attempts to attack this peninsula using all types of weapons they have. First they started attacking this area with missiles by the name of Neptune, but all those missiles were shot down by the Russian air defense systems. After that failed attempt, the Ukrainians took a decision to send Marines in direction of Crimea with the purpose to make a video on the Crimean shore. But the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainians. They raised the Su-30 aircrafts, and as a result of strike, the Ukrainian boats and ships were destroyed while they were moving back. From the Ukrainian side, at least the Ukrainian special forces published the video, and according to Ukrainian version of that situation, the Ukrainians managed to cross the Black Sea, to land their infantry on Crimea, and to make a video with the Ukrainian flag somewhere on the territory of Crimea. So this is according to Ukrainian sources. The Russian sources also are saying that after the Ukrainians landed on Crimea, there was a very short battle between the Russian forces and Ukrainian special group, and as a result of that clashes, the Ukrainians were forced to step back, but they lost one soldier who was wounded, and after that the Russians managed to capture him, and currently investigators are working with him. The question is, what was the purpose of that attack? Because the Ukrainians, according to the Russians, lost every single trooper who was involved in that operation. The Ukrainians haven't managed to go on Crimea, haven't managed to make a normal video and so on. But what was the purpose? Why the Ukrainians continue losing their best soldiers in these nobody needs operations? And probably the answer is about the losses, about the total losses of the Ukrainian army. The situation is very bad. Since the beginning of the special military operation, since the beginning of the greatest Ukrainian counter-offensive operation, the Ukrainians haven't managed to achieve even a single goal that they planned to achieve. Furthermore, today is the 4th of October, exactly on the 4th of June, the Ukrainians started their first day of offensive operation. And, for example, the military expert Ryber published his own statistics, and according to his statistics, as of 1st of October of 2023, the Ukrainians have already lost almost 500,000 soldiers. Significant number, 500,000, and according to his statistics, this is the numbers of total killed losses, so I can't even imagine the number with wounded. But this is according to the calculations of Ryber. Military summary, I do my own calculations regarding the Ukrainian losses, and by of today, the Ukrainians lost just 245,000 soldiers, according to my calculations. I don't know what is the base of Ryber calculations, but my calculations are based on the Ministry of Defense report. And yes, I'm telling you that I didn't start calculations from the first day. My calculations started somewhere on the June, the beginning of summer of 2022, but we see that the difference between my calculations and Ryber are very big. But anyway, the level of losses is very heavy, and currently the Ukrainians, the only possible solution for them how to reduce the negative media situation, is to show media victory. But another media attempt was failed by the Ukrainian forces. Now we're moving to the situation on the ground. And first we're going to start with Kherson direction. The Russians reported that as a result of fierce clashes, artillery bombings and duels and aviation bombings using FA-500, the Ukrainians lost 20 soldiers, 2 armored vehicles and 1 artillery system M777 howitzer. The Russians continue shelling the city, Kherson city, this area, continue reducing this territory to ruins, and according to information we have, the main purpose of all those attacks where we don't have any clashes on the ground is that, according to Russian authorities, official authorities, the Ukrainians continue concentration and accumulation their forces on this bank of the river Dnieper River, and very soon, probably even in October, the Ukrainians will make an attempt to cross the river and to attack the Russian positions. I'll remind you that currently the Ukrainians do have some footholds on the Russian bank of the river, but these territories is under complete Russian control. For example, the city by the name of Dachi that located along Antonov Bridge is already under Ukrainian control. But the Russians attack this territory every single day with different types of weapon, with guided bombs, with H-30A missile. And just if you take a look at this video, you're gonna see that most of the buildings are already reduced to ruins, and the Russians continue doing this job, trying to reduce as much as possible positions that Ukrainians can use for like concentration purposes. For example, on this video we can see the usage of missile H-30M. As a result of that strike, almost the entire block was destroyed as a result of the explosion. So the Russians don't give Ukrainians even a chances to concentrate their forces on this bank of the river. But interesting update we got also from the line of settlements Lvova, Burgunka, Kazatske, Berislav. As you can see, there are no icons, so we can say that since the beginning of the previous 2 weeks before, like for the previous probably 2 or 3 weeks, this is the first day when we haven't received nothing from this direction, and this is very interesting. Maybe the Ukrainians took a decision to remove their forces from this area, or maybe the Russians took a decision to make a small pause to get more details and information about the situation on the Ukrainian bank of Dnipro River. Now we are moving to Zaporizhzhia direction. The Russians reported that as a result of clashes in this area, the Ukrainians lost 45 soldiers, 2 armored vehicles and 3 artillery systems. As you can see, the level of losses is on the very low level in comparison with the active phase of Ukrainian counter-offensive operation. When talking about interesting video, probably the most interesting video is from the area between Novoprokopovka, Kopany and Rabotina. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources, and according to the author of this video, the Russian T-80 tank was heading to its fire position to attack the Ukrainian forces in Rabotina. But at some point this tank was damaged by the Ukrainian FPV drone, and the tank was damaged and the Russians were forced to stop, and probably later this tank was destroyed or at least damaged, so the Ukrainians the Russians couldn't use this tank anymore. The main value of this video is to confirm the geolocation of Russian positions. So basically this line, I will add this on the map, is the current position of Russian forces, and as soon as the Ukrainians managed to get the line between Rabotina and Novoprokopovka, and as I remind you that this event took place after 2 weeks ago, from that moment the Ukrainians haven't managed to advance further and to get more square meters, at least in this direction. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces on this fortification line between Rabotina and Novoprokopovka. As you can see, there are also already a lot of destroyed armored vehicles, 2 Bradleys at least on this video, and there are a lot of losses and casualties among the Ukrainians among trenches. Currently this area is under Ukrainian control, but they don't have chances to continue their offensive operation further. Furthermore, they don't have chances to concentrate more forces for any attacks further. As we discussed, according to the previous 2 days, the main focus of Ukrainian forces were between Siversk and Kopany, but for today we haven't received nothing from this direction. Furthermore, the Russians just published a video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on the fields between this square Novodanilovka, Malta, Kmachka, Novoprokopovka, Verbova, Rabotina. So just a regular military routine without any progress for both sides on the ground. Now we are moving further to South Donetsk direction, and first we're going to start with Vremivka tactical bridgehead. During the previous 24 hours we haven't received nothing from this area. There were no clashes, the situation is completely calm. Some sources were saying about the Russian progress in the vicinity of Priutina, some sources were saying about Russian progress in the fields in the vicinity of Razhaina, but when talking on the map we haven't received even a single geolocation about any progress from both sides. We just received significant number of videos of FPV drone strikes, so we can say that there is the same military routine from both sides, either from the Russian and from the Ukrainian. FPV drone duels without any progress on the ground. When talking about the losses, according to information we have, the Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of clashes on the South Donetsk direction, the Ukrainians lost 185 soldiers, and probably South Donetsk direction is the heaviest front line all over the combat line. But of course, when talking about Razhaina, we haven't received nothing. So the main losses of Ukrainian forces on the South Donetsk direction took place exactly on the line between Krasnogorovka, Novomykhailivka and Vuhledar. And as you can see, according to this area, currently this is the most active front line all over the combat line of in Ukraine. First, we're going to start with the Vuhledar direction. During the summer of this year, the Ukrainians, during their greatest offensive operation in Zaporizhzhia and Vremivka, the Ukrainians made few attempts to attack in direction of Vladimirovka, Nikolskaya, Pavlovka. And as a result of those attacks, the Ukrainians managed to capture few trenches and few tree lines. And now the Russians are bombing and shelling the Ukrainians using Fa-500, trying to force them to step back. So this is not the most important video. We are using this just to geolocate the Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of Vuhledar. When talking about Novomykhailivka, as you can see, there are a lot of icons from this territory, and the most important are coming from the stronghold by the name of Zvirinets. Today the Russians made another attempt to attack and storm this stronghold with tanks. This is probably fourth video in a row when the Russians are trying to storm this area. Currently, the Russians haven't entered this stronghold. They try to keep distance. They're using just one tank, always one tank, who comes on fire position and start bombing and attacking the Ukrainian trenches right in front. So basically by destroying everything inside of this stronghold. But yet the Russians haven't entered inside. Of course, this is a very interesting question. Why the Russians are not entering and not starting clearing this area? Probably because they feel some trap or feel some problems and feel that they still are not able to do this. They need more time to clear this territory. But one more time, this is not the first attempt from the Russian side to attack. If we increase the number of updates, let's say from the 24th of September, we're going to see significant concentration of Russian fire exactly in this area. There was attacks like from the north when the Russian tank was attacking this area, almost from the same position and probably the same like tank driver. We got the video from the south how the Russians were demining this area and also sent kamikaze tank. We got a lot of videos with this is, by the way, the kamikaze explosion. Yes, kamikaze tank explosion, this one. We got a lot of details, a lot of videos of Russian FPV drone strikes in this area. And FPV drone strikes, but yet the Russians haven't entered, as we discussed. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing and attacking Novomykhailivka. Now we got a lot of updates from the northern part of the city and from the southern as well. When talking about the northern part, the Russians used Lemur missile. This is helicopter missile that the Russians can use from hidden positions and staying invisible for Ukraine air defense. And as a result of that strike, the Russians damaged and almost destroyed the edge Ukrainian positions on the north of Novomykhailivka that they use as a fire position and the first stronghold before the in front of Russian offensive, in front of possible Russian offensive operation. The same situation from the south. Today the Russians published the video how they were bombing the southern outskirts of the city, of this village. They managed to destroy probably one ammo depot, and with the second strike they managed to destroy another position of Ukrainian forces somewhere in the tree lines a little bit to the northeast. Also, the Russians published the FPV drone strike. As a result of that strike, the Russians managed to damage or even destroy the Ukrainian stronghold and trenches also in the same area. So we can make few conclusions. First of all, the Russians still haven't started their ground operation in this area. Currently, they're trying to be they're trying to stay on the safe side. They don't want to risk. We see that there is no risk from the Russian side. Maybe this situation is connected with lack of manpower, and they try to solve the situation using the forces they have, and they're pretty successful with this, I believe. But anyway, no matter the Russians are not risking. Anyway, we understand that Novomykhailivka is going to be soon the target number one for the Russian, and the ground operation obviously is going to take even this year, according to my projection and speculation. A lot of updates are coming from the northern part of Marinka, between Marinka and Krasnogorovka. The Russians continue their offensive operation, trying to develop their foothold on the north of Marinka and to get as close as possible to the city by the name of Krasnogorovka. Today they stormed a few tree lines, and as a result of those attacks managed to capture some territories. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces along these tree lines, and as a result of those clashes, significant number of Ukrainian forces were damaged, killed, a lot of trenches were destroyed. So this is like the preparation, drone preparation before another ground operation of the Russian forces along this tree line. This is a very important area. If the Russians are able to capture this territory, of course they will be able to secure the Russian forces in the coal mine by the name of Trudovskaya, this one, and to create a normal foothold before the next waves of attacks in direction of Krasnogorovka. Also, the Russians, as a result of counter-artillery duels, managed to discover the Ukrainian Grad system, multi-launch rocket system Grad, in the vicinity of Krasnogorovka, and as a result of Krasnopol hit, that multi-launch rocket system was destroyed. Now we are moving further to Donetsk direction, and the Russians reported that as a result of clashes on Donetsk direction, the Ukrainians lost 165 soldiers and 5 armored vehicles. So the level of losses, probably for the first time since the beginning of this year, and maybe since the beginning of the special military operation, the level of losses on Donetsk direction is less than on some other front line. As we discussed, South Donetsk 185 and Donetsk 165. So for the first time, this area has the second place. And the thing is that currently there is a small operational pause when talking about the clashes on the ground. During the previous days, during the previous clashes for the railways, the Ukrainians were defeated, we remember that, but during those attacks, the Ukrainians managed to discover the position of Russian artillery systems in this area, of Russian supply roads and so on. And during the previous 2 days, yesterday and today, the Ukrainians continued destroying and attacking the discovered Russian positions using FPV drones. On this video, we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover a Russian truck, supply truck and with munition, and as a result of FPV drone strike, that machine was destroyed. A little bit to the south in Zaitsevo, the Ukrainians discovered Russian Grad system, multi-launch rocket system that Russians tried to hide between buildings, but as a result of FPV drone strike, that system was destroyed. A little bit to the south in the second Zaitsevo, there was the same story, another armored vehicle that the Russians tried to hide between the brushes, but as a result of FPV drone strike, that machine also was destroyed. All those trucks, artillery systems the Russians were using to attack and to support Russian forces while clashes for railways. From the other side, the Russians also established complete control, and mainly the Russians are focused in Ivanovska. And the reason of that, of course, if Bakhmut, a high-rise building with the possibility to establish radars, like connection equipment, and the Russians have significant connection, significant line and signal, and they have possibility to attack and destroy and basically to ruin Ivanovska, the city that located between Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, till ruins. As a result of FPV drone strikes, the Russians also destroyed significant number of concentration of Ukrainian forces, significant number of Ukrainian armored vehicles that the Ukrainians tried to hide, a lot of machines, a lot of light cars, a lot of evacuation teams, a lot of trenches, a lot of fortifications. So there are very heavy clashes, but currently there are no changes on the ground from both sides. On this video, we see how the Russians discovered the Ukrainian radar, and as a result of FPV drone strike, another radar was destroyed, and also another machine was destroyed as well. So there are no changes on the ground, but we expect that because of, according to main Ukrainian pattern, as soon as they start use drones and artillery strike massively, that means that in day or two the Ukrainians will launch a very powerful significant attack they can with one purpose: to get another square meters in this or that direction. Of course, we can say that the Ukrainians can do this or they can't do this, but the most important that if when talking about Klishchiivka, no matter whether the city in the gray zone or under Russian or under Ukrainian control, the most important that there are no Russians, that the Russians don't have 100% control over this city. And if we take a look at the map, we're gonna see that if the Ukrainians have Klishchiivka, then they have chances, and there are no barriers, there are no city barriers between Klishchiivka and the southern outskirts of Bakhmut. Currently, the next step is the battle for Bakhmut itself. There are going to be no more clashes for trees, for water reservoirs, for trenches, for brushes, for tree lines, for villages, for, small buildings. The next step from the Ukrainian side is the battle for Bakhmut. And as I understand, the Ukrainians are planning this battle, this storm operation for middle and late autumn and for early December, early winter. So we're going to see the battle for Bakhmut one more time, as I understand. Now we are moving to the north, to Siversk direction. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces along the railways between Bilogorovka and Siversk, and they try to concentrate their fire against the most fortified area on the railways, the area that probably the Russians are going to use for the next wave of attack. And as I understand, according to all these geolocations, this is the only secure and safe area for the Russian forces to move, because the fields are mined. Basically, the Russians don't have information regarding the safe roads, and even if there are safe roads, the Ukrainians, if they step back, they will mine everything. So the only possible solution for the Russians is to move along the railway tracks, so that's why they try to concentrate their fire exactly against the most fortified area, and probably this is going to be also one of the primary target for the Russians during the upcoming offensive Russian Federation, if this operation ever is going to happen ever. When talking about Kupyansk and Lyman front lines, we haven't received nothing from this direction when talking about geolocations. This is also very strange. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes on these two directions, the Ukraine lost 80 soldiers, 5 armored vehicles, including 1 tank, and 2 artillery systems and 1 radar INTPQ-37. But as you can see, no geolocations from this area for the first time. From one side we can say that there are no activity, but from the other side this might be something like a silent before a very, very strong storm that is going to take place exactly in this area. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.